The Everyday VOpreneur podcast was created to be your guide through the business and marketing side of voiceover, to help you navigate all of those unfamiliar spaces and tasks outside of the recording booth. So for the summer series episodes, I'm giving VOpreneurs the opportunity to join me live on the show and ask their most pressing business and marketing related question in hopes of providing even greater support and advice to the community. This week, I'm joined by Francis Cox. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Marc.
So, what is your most pressing business and marketing related question?
Well, this is something that's happened to me a couple of times. I've sent out an email to a named person, and I've received a reply, yay. And they write back to me and say, thank you very much for your email and the link to your demos. I've passed it on to my colleague who deals with voiceover. And if he's interested, or if she's interested, she'll get back to you. And I'm just thinking, shit, what do I do? How do I find out the name of this colleague so that I can carry on the conversation?
Right. And I mean, look, that's a common one when you're reaching out to companies and, you know, maybe you try to reach out to a producer, but there's several producers that work there. Or maybe you've reached out to a senior producer, but their, boss is the executive producer, so they're not necessarily the decision maker. So then you end up in this situation where you're in, but you're not all the way in, right? So how do I get all the way in? So I think there's a couple of options here. I think first and foremost, if you get that positive response that they've, passed your information along or whatever, never hesitate to write back and just ask straight up. Because I think one of the things you'll find is that if you've got the wrong person, they're not going to want to continue to get emails from you. So they would much rather pass it off to the right person anyway. So I would certainly not hesitate to write back and just with a quick message, thank you so much for the consideration. I really, truly do appreciate it. Would it be possible to get the name and email address of the person who's responsible so that I can have a conversation with them and chat a little bit more directly about my services and collaborating or something like that, right? So just a quick, simple email like that, I certainly think is the easiest way to work around that. And then I would also like to add to that, if you're doing your marketing, you reach out to somebody and you're not sure if you're reaching out to the right person because there is, 3 or 4 different producers that work there, or, you're not sure if you should reach out to a senior producer or executive producer or to a producer or a creative director or whatever. I think the other option that you have with your initial email is just below the final line, where you say, salutations in your name or whatever, to put a little PS or something that says, by the way, if you're not the person responsible for hiring voice actors, would you mind forwarding this email on to the person who is? And I've seen that work with success in the past too. So that covers you from 2 different angles, right? That covers you if you don't get a response, but then the other option of replying covers you if you do get a response. Now, you write them back, you ask nicely, as nicely as possible, if they'll pass on who the person was. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. If they don't, there's not a whole lot that you're probably going to be able to do at that point. I would still say, though, that I wouldn't just give up on the lead because they have expressed interest. And so maybe the next time that you forward an email to them, just one of your regular follow-up emails or checking in emails or something like that, maybe at that point they'll be like, oh, you know what, let me just give you so-and-so's name and address and get you connected there. And I think that might be the workaround for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we get nervous about asking some of those questions because, especially if somebody's given you a positive response, you don't want to blow it at that point, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to say the wrong thing, push too far. You don't want to turn them off. And so we get nervous about going further. But I would say that you've got absolutely nothing to lose by this point at asking the question just straight up, would you mind, so that we can have a chance to have a conversation or whatever. And you can ask it either, would you mind giving me their contact information, or, just mention to them that I would be happy to have a conversation with them. If you have a Calendly link, for example, where they could book a chat with you, maybe you could say that as well, right? If you wouldn't mind passing on this link so they can book a time in my calendar to have a conversation, Maybe they book it, maybe they don't, but at least you ask the question, right? So you're showing the initiative that you're trying to get through to the right person.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That answers the question for you?
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's given me a few options to work with. Yeah.
Right on. Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now you've got more time on your schedule to send a few more emails and hopefully convert a few more prospects. And you've got a couple of strategies to be able to carry those conversations on a little bit further.
Yeah.
All right, Francis. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, and glad that I was able to help you.
Well, yeah, thanks for the advice, Mark.
Absolutely.